We continue now with the Gemara and Brachos on the top of Daf Tes Zayin Amud Beis. This is Berachos 16b. The Gemara just finished discussing the idea of osek b'mitzvah pater min mitzvah and said that if a person marries a besula, a virgin, someone who's never been married before, he is pater from the mitzvah of Kriyas Shema. That is not true by marrying a widow. And the Gemara now questions why there's a distinction. If so, my area hakones es besula. Why does it have to talk about marrying a besula? Afilu kones es almana nami. Even someone who marries a widow should have the same halacha. He's busy with the mitzvah. He should be pater from Kriyas Shema. The Gemara answers hacha tarid v'hacha lo. In one case, his mind is preoccupied, in the other case is not. He's preoccupied when he marries a basula, and that's why only there he is exempt. Imisham tirda. Now, if it's because you are preoccupied, because your mind is bothered, afilu tavas finaso bayom nami. Even if his ship sinks at sea, he should be exempt from Kriyas Shema. Alomo amar Rabbi Abba bar Zavda amar Rav. So why did Rabbi Abba bar Zavda say in the name of Rav, Ovel chayiv b'chol mitzvahs ha'amuras b'Torah, that a mourner is chayiv in all mitzvahs? Certainly he is preoccupied. Chutz min tefillin sharei nemar bohen pe'er, with the exception of tefillin in Ovel, is pater from tefillin because they are called glorious. Shenemar, like it says, pe'ercha chavush alecha, you're going to wear your glory upon you. But the point here is that an Ovel is chayiv, so clearly preoccupation is not enough to make someone exempt. Gemara answers, Amri, they answer, Hasam tirda de rishos, hacha tirda de mitzvah. Over there we're talking about where somebody is preoccupied with a rishos, something that is not mitzvah related, and that does not exempt somebody from Kriyas Shema. Here we are discussing somebody who's preoccupied with a mitzvah. Osek b'mitzvah is pater from other mitzvahs. We continue now with the Mishnah. This is a continuation of a discussion of Rabbi Gamliel's practices. Rachatz laila harishon shemesa ishto. Rabbi Gamliel bathed on the first night that his wife died. Amru lo talmid, of his students said to him, limaratanu rabbeinu, didn't our Rebbe teach us she'avel aser lirchotz, that a mourner is not allowed to bathe? Amar lahem, he said to them, eini kashar b'nei adam, I'm not like other people. I'm very picky. I need to be clean. I need to wash myself. So I'm an exemption from this halacha. Ukeshemeis Tavi Avda, when Tavi, Rabbi Gamliel's servant, died, Kibel Olav Tanchumin, he accepted consolation for the death of his servant. Amrulo Talmidav. So his Talmidim said to him, Limaratanu Rabbeinu, didn't our Rebbe teach us She'ein Mekablan Tanchumin al Havadim, that we do not accept Tanchumin on servants? Amar Lahem, he said to them, Ein Tavi Avdi Keshar Kol Avodim, my servant Tavi is not like other servants. Kosher Haya, he is kosher, he is an exception to this rule. Chasan imrotza likros kriyas shema alayla harishon kore. The Mishnah says, along all the lines we've been discussing, if a chasan wants to read kriyas shema on the first night, when he gets married, he is allowed to read. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, Lo kol harotza litol es Hashem yitol. Not anybody who wants to take upon himself the name of God can do that. It's not so simple for a person to say, well, I want to be an exception to this rule, and I want to say kriyas shema when I'm really exempt. The Gemara now says, my taima de Rabban Gamliel. What is the reason of Rabban Gamliel? Why did Rabban Gamliel say that a person is allowed to be lenient on bathing on the night after the person died? The Gemara answers, Kasavar aninos laila de Rabbanan. Rabban Gamliel held that the aninos, the halachas of aninos that apply the night after, are only midrabanan. Dechsiv va'acharisa kiyom mar. The day after was bitter, meaning it applied only in the day. Uvamakom istanis lo gazru be rabbanan. And when it comes to an istanis, to somebody who is very picky, the rabbanan did not make a gezerah, they did not make a decree. They could be lenient on the night. Ucheshemeis Tavi Avda, when Tavi his servant died. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in a braysa, Avodim ushvachos ein omden alein beshura, vein omrim alein birchas avelim, v'tanchume avelim. When it comes to servants and maidservants, we don't stand in the special row of mourning. We don't say the bracha of mourning. We don't say the regular consolations of mourners. Maisa umeisa shivchaso shel Rabbi Eliezer. There was a story where the shivcha of Rabbi Eliezer died. Nichnasu talmidav lenachamo. His students came to console him. Came on Shara Osam Ola La Aliyah. When he saw them coming, he went to the upper story. V'alo achrav, they followed him. Nichnas la'an pilon, nichnasu achrav. Nichnas la'traklin, nichnasu achrav. He kept going on to other rooms. On pilon, Rashi says, is a small house in front of the traklin. So he kept trying to avoid them. He went to the anpilon, he went to the traklin. They kept following him. Amar lahem, he said to them, Kimeduma anisha atem nichvim beposhim. I thought that you guys were bright enough to be burned by lukewarm water. Achsha, but now, iatem nichvim afilu and you're not getting scolded even by the hot waters. I thought originally, Rashi here explains this, Nichvim beposhrim, Rashi says, Kilomar savur ha'yisish etavinu davar beremes muat. I thought you guys could figure something out with a small hint. Shereisa mosi sar me'alechem, likanis lan pilan. You saw me trying to avoid you. Turns out you couldn't even figure out after I went to several steps to get away from you that you shouldn't be following me. So they said, first he continued, Lo kach shanisi lochem, did I not teach you? Avodim ushvachos ein omdim aleim b'shura ve'ein omrim aleim berachas avelim ve'lo tanchumi avelim. We don't do the regular consolation, the regular mourning process when it comes to servants and maidservants. Ela ma omrim aleim, what do we say about them, about the avodim and shvachos? Keshem she'omrim lo la'adam al shoro ve'al chamoro, just like we say to a person on his ox and on his donkey, shemesu, which die. What do we say? We say Hamakim Yimale Lachas Ronach, that Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu should fill that which you are now lacking. Kach Omrim Lo Alavdo Val Shivcha. So too we say to a person who loses his Eved and his Shivcha, Hamakim Yimale Lachas Ronach. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu should fill that which you have lost. Tanya Idach, we learned in another brayso, Avodim ushvachos ein maspidino son. When it comes to servants and maidservants, we don't give eulogies. Rav Yossi says, Im eved kosher hu omrim olav, hoy ishto v'nemon v'nenem yagio. We say if he's a eved kosher, if he's a kosher servant, we say about him, woe to this loss. He was a good man, he was honest, and he derived benefit from his own work. Amrulo, they said back to him, they said back to Rav Yossi, Im kain, if that's what you say about the eved kosher, ma'inach l'kshenim, what are you leaving to say for everybody else? That is a very great praise of a person. So you're saying quite a praise for the avid kosher. You haven't left much room to improve for regular people. The Gemara now continues at the two dots with a brayso. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in a brayso. Ein korin avos ela lishlosha. We only call Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, those three, we only call them our avos. We don't call others the avos. Ve'ein korin imos ela la'arba. We only call imos the four. Again, that refers to Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. They are the only imos. So the Gemara says, Avos my time, and what's the reason by the Avos? If you're going to say the reason is because nobody really knows whether they come from Ruvain or Shimon, so we can't call them Avos. We all know we come from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. If so, Imos Nami. When it comes to the mothers also, Lo Yadinan Ime Rachel Kasinan, Ime Leah Kasinan. We don't know if we come from Rachel or Leah, but they are both considered Kasinan. We don't know if we come from Rachel or come from Leah, so yet they are still both considered imos, so that can't be the reason. Rather, the Gemara says, Ella, rather, ad hacha chashivi, tvei lo chashivi. Until these generations, they were considered important. After these generations, they were no longer considered important. So the three avos, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and the imos, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, they were considered important enough to refer to as avos and imos. Tanya Indach, we have another brayso. Avodim ushvachos en korin osam abba ploni ve'ima plonis. A person should not refer to his servants and his maidservants as Abba and Ima Plonis. Rashi here says we're not talking about father and mother literally, but in those times, just like we say Mr. So-and-so and Mrs. So-and-so, here we say the terms Abba and Ima were honorary terms which should not be used for Avodim and Shvachos. V'shel Rabbi Gamliel hayu koren osam Abba Ploni v'Ima Plonis. However, the servants of Rabbi Gamliel were called Abba Ploni and Ima Plonis. Maisa Lister, the Gemara asks, you're bringing a story here to contradict what you just said? The answer is Mishum Dechashivi. Because they were important, they had these special titles. These two braysos are brought together. They're very similar, both talking about calling avos and himos because they are important. Gemara continues here at the two dots. Amar Reb Elazar says, "Ma'idich siv." What does the pasuk mean when it says, "Kein avarecha b'chayoi b'shimcha esakapi"? I'm going to bless you in my life. I'm going to lift my hands towards you. I'm going to lift my hands towards your name. What is this referring to? Kein avarecha b'chayoi zu kriyashma. This is a pasuk in Tehillim. So the first part of the pasuk refers to Kriya Shema. B'shimcha esakapi. The second part of the pasuk Zu Tefillah refers to Tefillah Shmona Esrei. V'yemos Kain. And if a person does these things, he says Kriya Shema, he says Tefillah properly. All of Hakasav Omer. The pasuk says about him K'mo Chela V'Dosh and Tizba Nafshi, that he's like satisfied with his soul is very satisfied with fats and good food. V'lo, not only that, Ela Shenochel Shnei Olamim. Such a person inherits two worlds. Ha'olam Hazeh v'Olam Haba. He inherits this world and the next world. Shneimar, like it says, Usfasai Rinanos Yahalel Pi. Rinanos is in plural. My lips have double sing your praises. This double language refers to Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. The Gemara now continues at the two dots. Rebbe Elazar Basar de Messiah Tzolose Amar Hachi. The Gemara here will now record the opinions of various Amoraim, what one says when he finishes the Shemona Esrei. After Shemona Esrei is over, the Brach of Sim Shalom, the end of that bracha signifies the end of Shemona Esrei. Ashrei. What should one say after that finishes? So Rabbi Elazar would say the following: He ratzim l'fanecha Hashem Elokeinu shetishkan b'pureinu ava v'achva v'shalom v'reyes v'tir b'gvulenu v'talmidim v'satzliach sofenu achris v'sikva v'sasim v'chalkeinu b'gan Eden v'saknenu b'chever tov v'yetzer tov b'olamecha v'nashkim v'nimtzu yachol v'venu l'yira shemecha v'tova l'fanecha koras nafshenu l'tova. Bekitzer, in short, what he's saying over here is we should have love and brotherhood through in our areas. We should have successful talmidim, and there should be our portion should be in Gan Eden. We should be with a good chevra, and we should be zoch. We should merit to fear you, etc. Rabbi Yochanan Basar de Mitzayim Tzulose. Rabbi Yochanan, when he finished his prayer, his davening, Amar Hach, he said as follows: Yiratzim l'fanecha Hashem Elokeinu shetatzitz b'voshteinu v'tabit b'rasenu v'sislabish b'rachamecha v'siskasa b'uzecha v'sisate v'chasidusecha v'sizazer v'chaninosecha. We should essentially wear your mercy upon us, and you should see how ashamed we are, and therefore you should protect us from this with your grace. Rabbi Zera Basar de Messiah Tzlosi. Rabbi Zera, when he finished his prayer, Amar Hach, he said as follows: Yiratzim l'fanecha Hashem Elokeinu shelo nechata v'lo nevosh v'lo nikolim me'avoseinu. So we shouldn't sin, we shouldn't be embarrassed. It says over here me'avoseinu. If you take a look up here, the slightly different gears are Yoser, Perish Yoser me'avoseinu. We should not do more sins than from what our fathers did. We should not increase the amount of sins. It makes a little more sense than the girsa of Aloni Cholim, just me'avoseinu. Rabbi Chia Basar Damatzli, Rabbi Chia, after he prayed, Amar Hach, he said as follows: Yiratzim l'fanecha Hashem Elokeinu sheteis torascha umnuseinu v'yidvel libenu v'yachshechu einenu. Our eyes shouldn't be dark, our hearts shouldn't be depressed, shouldn't be saddened, and Torah should be our craft, our profession, our work. Rav Basar Tzulose Amar Hachi. Rav, after he died, and said as follows: Yiratzim l'fanecha Hashem Elokeinu shetitun lanu chayim aruchim, chayim shel shalom, chayim shel tova, chayim shel bracha, chayim shel parnasa, chayim shel chilot atzamos, chayim sheyesh b'm yiras chet, chayim she'em b'am busha v'chlima, chayim shel osha v'chavod, chayim shetevanu avas Torah v'yiras shamayim, chayim shetemali lanu es kol mishalos libenu tova. Essentially asking for a life of peace and good and bracha and parnasa and yiras shamayim and yiras chet and osha and chavod. Rabbi Basar Tzulose Amar, Rabbi, after his davening, he said Hachi as follows: Yiratzim l'fanecha Hashem Elokeinu v'elokei avoseinu you should save us from bad people, from bad friends, from bad neighbors, from the satan, whether from someone like this who is Jewish, whether from someone like this who is not Jewish. And the Gemara adds a little thing in over here. Rebbe said this even though he was protected by the command of Antoninus. He had actually officers protecting him from anybody who wanted to do him harm. Still, he asked for protection after Shmona Esrei. Rav Safra Basar Tzulose Amar Hachi. Rav Safra, after he finished davening, he said as follows: Yiratzim l'fanecha Hashem Elokeinu shetasim shalom. It should be your will, you should place peace. And we will continue with the paragraph that Rav Safra said after Shmona Esrei on the next daf, on daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph.